Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today. And today I'm going to be talking about the Houston Texans potentially hiring assistant general manager Adam Peters as the new general manager. I know, that's crazy. Why are we already talking about hiring a new general manager when we haven't even fired the current one we have, and it's only week 3 of the NFL season? The Houston Texans, after Derek Stingley Jr., it was announced yesterday that he has a hamstring injury, and he's going to be out for quite a while, potentially 6 to 8 weeks, that now it's time to officially declare Derek Stingley Jr. as a bust, and it's time to fire Nick Caserio, current general manager. And I'm not saying fire Nick Caserio right now. I don't want them to, and I'd actually be quite upset if you fired him right now or in weeks to come. I personally want the Houston Texans to keep Nick Caserio till the trade deadline. After that, I don't really care what happens to him. To be honest, because, I mean, he hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been great either. I want to see what he can do at the trade deadline because, you know, in his prior years in Houston as the general manager, the Texans have been sellers at the trade deadline, but this year I view the Houston Texans as buyers at the trade deadline. I think by the trade deadline, the Texans will be 7 games in by the trade deadline. Call me crazy, but I think the Houston Texans by then will probably win 2 or 3 ball games. I think the Texans will probably be sitting at 3-4 or 2-5 going into the October 31st trade deadline. The game before the trade deadline is a show off between number 1 overall pick and Bryce Young. Number 1 overall pick Bryce Young and number 2 overall pick C.J. Stroud. That is October 29th, 2 days before the trade deadline. Then Tuesday, October 31st, Halloween, is the trade deadline. And I see, even though the Texans might be 2-5 or 3-4, might see some room for improvement and maybe add in some pieces for, years to come. And I see that, but this Texans team potentially being buyers at the trade deadline. I think they're going to eye a wide receiver, whether that's Mike Evans or it's Marquise Brown or it's Hunter Renfrow. And I see them eyeing a defensive lineman like Danielle Hunter or maybe somebody else for the defense, potentially. I really could see the Houston Texans making huge splashes at the trade deadline, making 2 moves, maybe trading for Marquise Brown and Danielle Hunter from the Vikings and the Cardinals. And so I just want to see how Nick Caserio handles potentially being a buyer at the trade deadline. If he doesn't do good with that, if they don't make any serious moves at the trade deadline, I think it's probably time to say goodbye to Nick Caserio. And one of the front runners to potentially be the new general manager for the Houston Texans, and what Texans Twitter has been going crazy about, is that the Houston Texans need to sign assistant general manager Adam Peters from the San Francisco 49ers. Texans Twitter believes if Nick Caserio gets fired and the Texans are looking for a new general manager, that their search will be based off what DeMeco Ryans is, what he thinks is the best fit for the team. And a lot of people think he will go to assistant general manager Adam Peters, where he came from in San Francisco, who's had has had a couple chances to have a general manager job. He has interviewed for a general manager job a couple times, just has never stayed with San Francisco. But I think this year could be this next offseason could be the offseason for him to become a general manager in the NFL, and that very well could become with his former how do you call that? Not teammate. His former staff member, DeMeco Ryans, but this time they wouldn't be defensive coordinator and assistant general manager. They'd be head coach and general manager. It would be a big difference. But I wouldn't mind adding in Adam Peters. I mean, it gives DeMeco Ryans some more freedom, making more decisions than compared to with Nick Caserio. I think Adam Peters would get DeMeco Ryans involved. I don't mind keeping Nick Caserio another year after this year, but at the same time, I don't mind getting rid of him either. As of right now, I really don't care with Nick Caserio. He doesn't piss me off, and he doesn't satisfy me as the general manager either. I mean, he's made some gutsy calls, and mostly with the draft. I mean, look at the draft. You know, drafting Derek Stingley Jr. and Kenyon Green in the first round. Those have really been the only true mistakes I see when I look at Nick Caserio as the GM. And, look at first round. Look at what he did last year. Drafted Will Anderson Jr. and C.J. Stroud, and then made some great draft picks in the 2022 and 23 drafts. I know that, look at the later rounds in this last year's draft. Tank Dell, Juice Scruggs, Henry To'oTo'o, who's been pretty good in his first 2 games at linebacker from Alabama. And look at last year's draft in the mid-rounds. He snagged Dameon Pierce in the 4th round, drafted Jalen Petrie and Christian Harris in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. There was someone else he drafted in that draft, and John Mechie as well in the 2nd round. I thought he did some very good things in the 2022 draft in the later rounds, getting John Mechie, Christian Harris, Jalen Petrie, Dameon Pierce in the 4th round, even Tegan Quintanaro, the tight end in the 6th round, who's been pretty solid in his first year or 2 with the Texans. So, yeah, I mean, I think that Nick Caserio's done some good things. I thought that last year's free agency was good compared to all the other years, but at the same time, look at the prior years, what he had to do in free agency. Those, yes, he didn't make the best free agency additions, but no one really wanted to come to Houston. Last year, there was some hype with DeMeco Ryans being the head coach and the Texans having good draft picks with the 2nd overall pick and the 12th overall pick, which eventually became the 3rd overall pick in the draft once the Texans traded up for Will Anderson Jr. But, I thought that Caserio made some nice moves in free agency. I really like the additions of Dalton Schultz and Devin Singletary on the offense. Also, look how good the addition of Robert Woods at offense has been. He's been great through the first 2 games. Noah Brown, I know that he's on IR right now, but he was a good addition, and when he's healthy, he'll be good to this offense. I thought that some of the defensive additions in free agency were good. I like the Sheldon Rankins and Denzel Perryman additions in free agency. I thought he did a solid job in free agency this past spring, and I thought Caserio has done a couple solid things over the last couple years, but I think the big things that will haunt him as his time as the general manager and at the end of things could get him fired is the first round of the 2022 NFL draft, drafting Derek Stingley Jr., drafting him 3rd overall, and him having season-ending hamstring injury in Week 10 of last year, only played 9 games in his rookie year, now only 2 games in the regular season. He's already out 6 to 8 weeks. Kenyon Green was the 15th overall pick. He's a left guard from, I believe we went to Texas A&M, and we drafted him 15th overall. He was terrible in his rookie year, but he got better throughout the offseason and improved his game. But sadly, he's out for the season with season-ending surgery. So it's not looked good with these draft picks from 2022 in the first round. Yes, I said the later draft picks in that draft with Petrie and Pierce and John Mechie and even Christian Harris have looked good, but the early draft picks, the first round, you had 2 picks in the top 15, and those 2 guys have not only struggled to stay on the field, but even one of them, in Kenyon Green, has been bad when he's been on the field. So I think those decisions by Caserio are going to be what maybe cost him his job. But I think adding in Adam Peters as the GM, if Caserio gets fired or let go by the Texans or leaves, I know that has popped up in the past. I know there's been potential rumors about Caserio leaving the Texans for the Patriots, which would have been crazy. But I would totally be okay with the Texans hiring Adam Peters, assistant general manager of the San Francisco 49ers. If the Texans went ahead and fired Caserio, I think Adam Peters would be the front runner to be the Texans' new general manager, and I think it would be a very good decision. That's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed them, your thoughts, and peace out. Go Texans.